kick it off, Ben, could you talk a little bit about the genesis of this play and like where the start of that was for you and what inspired you?
Yeah, totally. Um, so I think this play, like many of my plays, starts with like a question that I'm um, mulling over in my own sort of personal life. And I guess for this play, it was that I had been raised with this idea that the identity of Christianity and being a Christian was in opposition to a queer identity, and that those two things were in opposition to one another and could not be held by the same person at the same time. Um, and as I got older, I met more and more people who had felt like they had chosen one identity over the other and were unable to hold both. Um, and then I was introduced to someone, Pastor Peter, who I think is actually on here. Hello. Who was one of the first people that I met who had a harmonious relationship between both of these identities. And I became really curious about how that was possible and what was it that allows for some people to hold both of these identities and find a sense of like harmony and between the two instead of feeling like you have a schism within yourself. And thankfully, he was very generous and answered a lot of questions that I was very curious about in my own life, much of which influenced this play. I also read a memoir by Gerard Conley called Boy Erased that was really influential in the writing of this piece. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's the genesis
Awesome.
in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for sharing. And then I know for a number of you, this has been, you've worked on this play once, twice. You've done a production of it, some of you. And so I want to turn quickly to Maylee, who's directed this before, and Rebecca, who I know has done dramaturgy for this piece a couple times during different iterations. And just check in with both of you to talk about like, what are some things that really attracted to you to this piece? And how has that like arc of it changing and growing been exciting for you?
Well, I feel very fortunate to have had the chance to work on this piece and think that a lot of that is just due to being lucky and kind of being in the right school at the right time. You know, us all being at Yale School of Drama, this was part of my curricular work. It was just assigned that Ben and I and Rebecca would get to work on this together. And I remember Ben emailing me the first draft of the script that I had a chance to read. And I was in the car with my mom on a long car ride. And I read the whole thing out loud to my mom in the car and played all the characters. And we were both just like weeping, like we had to pull over because we were both just like weeping as we were reading it together in the car. And it's really been, I mean, the story is a gift, but also just the world that it creates for a group of artists to live in together is a gift, because it is a world that's about, it requires us as the artists telling it to make a space that allows us to really be together in our wholeness, and requires us to actively practice loving each other in the room in our fullness. Because if we're not really practicing that through the entire process, then it doesn't get there, you know, on the stage, and doesn't translate into the audience. And so it's just such an exercise in being together and in loving together. So I feel very fortunate to have met all of you.
Lovely. And Rebecca, are there any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I had sort of been admiring Ben's work from afar before we got to YSD. Gregor used the word multitudinous about Ben earlier in the day, and I really think that describes the work that I'd been reading from Ben. And then when we got to YSD, we started sort of scheming on how we were going to work together, including reading a couple of different plays together. And we got very lucky and the timing worked out, and I got assigned to this project. And yeah, I think I just really fell in love with the script and with this group of people. And I adore working on new work, especially because you get to see it evolve over the very first pages that I read from it, sort of in our first year, into what we did with it during the Langston Hughes Festival in our second year. And now, since then, watching Ben bring it to other groups of people and then bring it back together with this group has been thrilling to see its evolution. And I'm really glad that we got this opportunity to sort of reconnect with it. Yeah.
Awesome. We have some questions coming in from the audience. One question, I think this was a little directed at Ben. How did your own, and you talked about this a little bit, and I'm wondering if you hear anything in here that you want to also respond to, cool. And if you feel like you've covered it, also cool. But they asked, how did your own personal ties with faith and religion affect your character and the overall objective of the play?
Yeah, totally. So one of the words that was given to me in the working of this play was seeking, and thinking about the character of Christian as a seeker. And I identified with the word really deeply, because I felt like that was sort of where I was at in my journey, was like looking for answers to lots of questions that I had. So I like deeply identified with that idea of the search, and trying to expand my understanding, because in the church I was raised in, I had a very narrow idea of what it meant to be a Christian and how that played with other facets of my identity. And so it was really helpful to then get to talk to other Christians of different denominations with their understandings, their beliefs, different interpretations of the Bible. And I think it definitely enriched my understanding of the Bible, my relationship to God, as well as like the story that I was writing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. There's a question from Anita. How did you develop the whole gaming aspect of the play? And why did you use that to bring Daniel and Chris together?
Yeah, I mean, I was really interested in like gaming culture, and like gamer spelled Gaymer, and was working in tech myself when I was living in Seattle for a bit, and was really interested in that sort of like, I'll call it a subculture, and how like the ability to play a game allowed for intimacy. And I think I'd like to hand it over to Maylee and Rebecca to talk a little bit about how we staged it, because I think that also was like really revealing in terms of like what we learned about how that functioned in the story.
Yeah, it was very interesting returning to the play in the Zoom world after we had physicalized it in person, because it was highly choreographic. And we started like our process. Initially, we had like 2 rolling chairs, and there was like all kinds of like rolling chair ballet going on. And then pretty quickly we like ditched that, and it just became the bodies in space and our imaginations. And the gaming world was like, it had this sort of like spinning quality to it, I think, where it was a way of, it's like when you're sitting on a bench next to someone and you're able to have a really intimate conversation with them because you're not staring at them directly in the face. You have something else in front of you, and it allows you to kind of put yourself out there in a less risky feeling way. But then the characters also had the opportunity to be like, oh, like it's going to a place of vulnerability, blah, 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 and like shake it up, and like Rainbow Road kind of allowed them to get back into a place of connect and a place of comfort when like a little bit too much kind of came out at once. But yeah, there was a lot of rolling on the floor. There was a lot of choreography. So it was interesting coming into like this experience for the workshop.
Absolutely. As someone who has staged video game plays with beanbags and controllers, it is not always fun. We have a question from Catherine, which this kind of for everyone, which is, what is like the biggest thing that you learned doing this for a second time after some time away from it, which as theater artists, I feel we so rarely get to do. It's so rare to get to like reprise a role that you've performed before after some time, and especially in an unexpected way. So if anybody has thoughts about that they'd love to share, people would love to hear it.
I'll start. Hi, Catherine. I think we all learned a lot. I think we all learned a lot about sort of what we missed about being in person is a really big thing that we all which we knew, but I think the experience of returning to a play that we had the embodied experience of doing in the room and rolling around on the floor with, to then sort of be in this flat space, was both incredibly moving and incredibly heartbreaking all at the same time. And for me, I learned a lot about, there was some serious deepening of some of these relationships. I think especially the relationship between Daniel and Christian, we continue to find new layers to it. And having Walton in the role of the father, I think was a huge gift for us. Patrick Ball, who originated the role and did a beautiful job, is our age. And so to have somebody who is the age that is written in the father just adds new depth and a new view of that character in a way that brought some really, really meaningful insights for us.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's cool is because we've been with the play for so long and it's gone through so many iterations, like all the Bradford Cox stuff was originally in the play and then it got taken out of the play because we couldn't figure out how to like make it work in the play when we were doing it the last time. So now to come back and see, like, that's always informed how I think that Christian understands his spirituality, that story of the hamster in the hands. But it's interesting to see like how it's new in this play. And also I think the thing that I really learned in this play is, one, I really miss being in a theater. I miss because, you know, this play is a gift in that it's got all the audience interaction with the asides. Like I remember one night we were doing it and the audience was like so with us. And when I did that speech, I was like, this is a list of my favorite Mario Kart courses. By the time Gregory and I got to Rainbow Road, the entire audience said Rainbow Road with us. And it was just so incredible. It was like, yes, we are playing. Y'all are in this love story too. But something that I think is really, really beautiful that Ben, I think, has developed in this draft is Christian's still like active pursuit of finding God again, the search of finding that voice again, which was really nice to explore.
Yeah. There's some other questions that I can totally move on to, but if anybody wants to. Okay, cool. A question from Anita. She loved the tap, 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 rustle, rustle, rustle. It worked really well on Zoom. And she wondered how you would see that translating into a physical production. And I know we left out some of the specifics about how you envisioned the play to be staged, Ben. We just wanted to like live in it. But does anyone want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, so the play has several has a physical vocabulary of several like repeated gestures. And the tap, tap, tap and wrestle, wrestle, wrestle come with the vocalized language, but they do like want to be physical gestures. The play is called In His Hands. We have found that the play really has a rich hands-on gestural life, and being able to see people's hands moving and touching each other is like such an important part of the physical world of the play. So they want to come with a physical gesture. Hello, kitty. And then like in the fully physicalized version, there's also the hand behind the head gesture. There's when characters face each other. There's like a whole really rich range of repeated gestures, and they become multifaceted and multi-layered in terms of their meaning as you see them used by different characters in different contexts.
Yeah, and I think part of what makes that gestural life so prominent in the play is that the way it's written, it's imagined to be produced without any scenery and without any props. So truly everything in the play is created through the word and through the bodies of the actors.
Absolutely. We have a question from Anne. It was very powerful to experience this play this way in the limitations of this format. It served it beautifully. You all did a beautiful job connecting with one another and inviting us in. How did you develop the vocabulary for communicating this piece, which is so visually rich in this format?
I think I don't know, say something about that. It's been really fascinating, and it's such a gift to have done it before, doing it live before we did it over Zoom, because I feel like for a lot of us, there was a place to go back to that was pretty easy to, not easy, but we had the vocabulary kind of set, and then it was just adapting it to this little square that we're in. And actually, that was one of the main challenges, and especially for the therapist and the father character, who exists in this kind of liminal space that is behind and in it. And when we staged it, we were in this kind of darkly lit kind of nether world, and to try to find the ways that we could translate that over this Zoom, where I don't have an expensive lighting setup. Walton kind of has really perfected that, but just like what we chose to like, what we chose to focus on, and finding the gestural life, because we had a great teacher at school, Erica Fay, come in and really work on the like physical, spiritual body. And especially, I mean, for me, that was huge for the therapist, who I thought didn't say everything that was going on inside of him. To translate that to a space like this has been really fascinating. And honestly, I thought we found some really cool things.
Absolutely.
Hi, Anne and Jace.
There's a question for Walton from Cynthia. How did it feel to step into this role, especially since you'd seen the play previously?
Well, as someone mentioned, current student Patrick Ball had developed or created the role, and had done a really, I thought, really splendid job with it. So it was, it's always interesting when you're a new cast member joining a company or a cast that's been together. I tried to have no preconceived ideas about who this man was, and just, the script is so rich that it's kind of endlessly evocative as an actor. I mean, there's so many ways that one could go with all these moments. So I thought it was a real gift, and really all I had to do was listen. I just had to listen to Johnny, or listen to Devin, and it was all there, or at least, I think in the script it's all there. So, and I know these people. So it's not, you know, they're not strangers to me. So it was such a delight and a joy and a privilege to be in the room, Zoom room with them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. There's a question from Drew, and a couple of people were echoing a similar sentiment. For a powerful play like this, where you're heavily reliant off of the other person in the scene and in the play, for the actors, how are you able to sustain that energy of connection while being over Zoom?
I don't know if it's worth it for me to interject here because my internet is freaking out. I hope you all can hear me. Someone please stop.
We can. We can hear you. You're great.
We can hear you. Well, not anymore.
Oh
no. Okay, amazing. I'm just gonna keep talking and hopefully. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna cut it.
Oh, you're back. You're back. You're here. You're here.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Well, like this is the exact problem, right? So we're always like trying to reach forward toward like this. I mean, it's another obstacle and you have to treat it like it's actually happening. Otherwise, it's not live theater anymore, right? And like that, I mean, particularly for me, I think I can honestly say, oh, I could tell at the end of the show, like the connection was starting to slow down, and I can then take that information and energy and bring it back into the scene and into the world of the play. Or at least I hope I do. So I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's not, I will say it's not easy and it's certainly not natural. Like, even on a film set, you're in the room with a person, you know, I mean, unless you're doing like a green screen with a dinosaur, but like, that's like a whole different thing. But I think, again, this has been echoed before. We had the great privilege of already doing this and putting a lot of like tactile hours together. So luckily, and also the play is so beautiful. Like if you just put your attention on the other person and listen like hell, then Ben's play does the work for you in a lot of ways because it's so well constructed.
Yeah, and to like kind of add on to that, of the like, I mean, at once I'm picturing you have the script here, the camera here, your friends' faces here, and then when we have to turn to another person, it's so much to jump onto, but it's also, I mean, the thing that we were lucky enough to learn of, like sourcing. I mean, that's of every, even if the person isn't in front of me, I'm not necessarily picturing Johnny's Christian. I might be picturing, I can imagine it. It's in a way, it's a gift that I allow myself to imagine whatever I want that can give me the feeling I needed to act alongside. And it may not be the Christian I remember a year ago doing live. It may be this other, it at times was like the 17-year-old version of me, you know? I mean, it's like, you can kind of add, it's a gift in a way of really, you can create your own universe outside of this little screen right here, which has been helpful.
There's a question from Victor for Ben about the Rainbow Road sequence. And he was very interested. He was worried he might have missed, or was there no mention of the cheat on Mario Kart 64 on the Rainbow Road track? Apparently there's a hidden way that you can get ahead of the competition.
I love it. There is no mention of the cheat in the script. I was trying to be pretty sparing with like how much information we got about Rainbow Road, trying not to complicate it too much. But I love that you brought that up, and I cannot wait to check out this video that you put in the chat. This is amazing. Thank you.
And then we have a question from Jennifer. For Ben. When writing this play, did you envision a Black man playing the role of Daniel?
I love Gregory. They're amazing. My specification for this role was that it should be not white. That was like the one specification that I did have for the character of Daniel specifically, because Jesus was not a white man. So I specify that the description in the play of Jesus that the actor cast in the role should conform to that description as much as possible. And that's what I specified.
Thanks. Awesome. I think that might be it for questions. If you have last minute questions, now is your last chance. But is there anything that any of you would like to ask the audience, or anything that any of you would like to say that you feel like we didn't get to address yet at this point? And no is a perfectly okay answer.
This has just been a wonderful, this has just been a wonderful return to theater in a way that I feel like a lot of us, or at least I can speak for myself, it's kind of counted it out this year, and that I could get this feeling again. And it's just been really lovely for all of you, and I appreciate audience out there wherever, but to all of you, I just really appreciate this gift. And to Portland Stage, I appreciate y'all hosting this, but it was a really lovely chance to jump back into this this world.
Awesome. We super feel that way too. Thank you all so much for all of the hard work that you put in this week. Thank you, all of you out there in Zoom land, for sticking around with us and watching.